So, we're dividing a road. The most important thing, that's my alarm. The most important thing is data retention. So, we want to keep as much of the original stuff here as possible, including both segments and nodes. So, in order to do that, the first thing you want to do is take the road you're trying to divide and cut it in half, about the middle. Then decide which part you're going to commit to which side. Take one of the end nodes, pull it to the side. Take the other one, pull it to the other side. Don't save. And then you'll take these bits apart from each other. And set them to one way properly. Don't save. So over here, the next step is obvious. Connect this. Well, just kidding, don't do it yet. Over here, the next step is fairly obvious. Connect this here. This will need to be extended. You could have done this, well anyway, I won't complicate it. You can add a segment here. I just use the keyboard shortcut. I'm sure you can add a segment. You already have done this. So that's easy enough. Check that all your turns are correct. This one is not. Good way to do this is by using Shift Z. Shift Z will show you restricted turns even if nothing is selected. And then while we're working, just connect this guy right here. Make sure you set the turns correctly. You have to check each and every segment if there is one that needs to be set red. And now that you're all connected, you can save. You have to make sure everything is connected when you save, because you never know when the snapshot's going to be taken. Now this next portion, for some reason, has a bunch of nodes in it already, which is odd. Perhaps parking lots were deleted. I don't know. But if there are already nodes that you can use, I mean, we don't need all of these. But this will work. In the alternative, you can, whoa, something's not right here, so let me reload. Data, there we go. You can also pull this way, and this will show you what to do when you already have a segment going across the in there. I'm having problems. There should only be one segment here. Try that again. Okay. Okay, so we don't need all of these. So these are ghosts. Let's see. So let's try that again. And pull this one over to this side. And then this whole thing will come over. And then this one will go over here to the other side. And you can bring that geometry over here such that, you know, it kind of lines up with the road. It's always nice. Usually you want the geometry to line up with the center of a road, but it doesn't always work out that way. So bring this down. Be prepared to connect it at some point later. Remember to set your one way. Well, first, check your connections over here. It's good to work in Shift Z mode because you'll see restrictions before you proactively check them. Here, okay, what the heck is that about? Sorry, that's my alarm. So, be checked here. Well, okay. Left turn prohibited. There's no reason for this to be a time-based restriction because it's completely prohibited. And left turn prohibited is, yeah, that's what it means. So, I'm just going to make that a regular restriction. Anyway, oops. Anyway, you can connect over this end. What? Yeah. Connect over this end too. Okay. Make sure your restrictions set it to one way properly. Make sure your restrictions are good. Don't just enable everything now. Remember there's no left turn here. And then come over to the other end. This part is interesting. Bring this over here. And then you can reconnect it that way. Bring this here and check everything. Set Shift Z to make sure it's all good. We'll enable this even though, you know, because there's no reason you can't make a U-turn there. Okay, now this is all set up. That's another one. You follow essentially the same principles when you do this with a completely divided road. But anyhow, you generally think, and I haven't really thought this through, but you generally want to go kind of the same direction with these. This has got some restrictions too. So, what? You can't turn left out of there. No U-turn, apparently. Fine. Oh, I did that. So you probably can't do a U-turn. Let's do this as one last example. In this case, really this only needs to be on this side. So that's my alarm. Jones Creek Village Avenue. And then check your turns. You can do that That is not possible. Now there's that. Now there's that. In fact, this is really a one-way segment. That solves it. So this is actually only accessible from one side, so you can kind of just skip right over that. You see? And this is kind of like this. But you want to be careful with this angle here. Sorry, that's my alarm. You want to make sure it's less than 45 degrees so that you do actually get a turn left instead of a stay to the left, which would be misleading. So anyway, there's your first I messed up. See, that's a mistake I made. Set this to one way. Make sure all the restrictions are right before you save. See, do as I say, not as I do, of course. And this U-turn is really allowed here. We'll be changing that shortly. But anyway, there's how you do it. Dividing a road. I'm almost done. A couple of notes. First of all, the point where you start dividing it is the point where you can no longer move across the center. Here, it looks like it would be right about here, where you can no longer, where you're no longer legally allowed to turn across the center. It looks like people do it here anyway, but you can't cross one of these, so I would not suggest any illegal movements. So I would start right about here when I divide it up. Okay, and it goes the whole way. The road type here, I'm a little curious about. We can actually check that. Presuming that minor highway is correct, you always want to go, when you have a median segment like this, you always want to go with the higher of the two types. That's for continuity purposes. I don't know why my edit isn't working. But anyway, you can check. So you can check that road type to see if it's right. Like I was saying, the higher of the two for continuity purposes. That's a simplified version of the rule, but it's basically it. I'm not that familiar with this area. Oh, that's easy. Okay, I see the problem here. Whoa. Okay. So you can kind of see there's a few mistakes here in the road types, and maybe that's my fault. Shenandoah's correct. I mean, the Jones Creek is correctly a minor highway. This should also be a minor highway, which is what? Coursey, that's how you say it. Between Sherwood Forest and O'Neill. This up here should also be a minor highway, etc. You can check the road types article in the Waze wiki to understand how we do it. It's a little complicated, but in short, sorry, that's my alarm. Minor highways are anything that's a minor arterial in functional classification, or any state highway. And it gets a little more complicated, but that's the short of it. So if you see something that's, on the functional classification map, it's a minor arterial, there's a green, helpfully. Oops. That has to be a minor highway. Or even if it's not quite up to that level and it's a state highway, it should be at least a minor highway. It's a set of minimums. That's a lesson for a different day. Point is, these road types need some work, but Jones Creek is good. Alright, so if that wasn't sidetracked enough for you, I hope that was helpful and not too confusing. And if it is, well, maybe I'll try it again later. Signing off.